Sabotage. That's the nothing personal word of the day. It is Monday, July 21st, 2025, and we've got a couple double, triple entendres today. Sabotage, just keep that in mind as we talk about the Dodgers getting swept by the Brewers. We're going to get to J.C. Tretter and what's going on in the NFL Players Association. We're going to start, though, in baseball, where we return to action. The old post-All-Star break. We warned you Friday. It's going to be a big weekend of games. Start telling the story of the last part of the season, the sprint toward the deadline, the sprint toward October. It's hard not to start in LA because when we see things that we don't often see, we get excited. You don't often see the Milwaukee Brewers with a 10-game winning streak. That's awesome. You don't often see a team beat the Dodgers 6 times in a year. Does not happen often. And that's what the Brewers have done. You don't often see, frankly, if you want the stats on that, I'll give them to you. The Brewers are only the 3rd team to go 6-0 or better against the Dodgers in a season. 3 times it's happened. The Cardinals did it to them in 2006. What happened to the Cardinals in 2006? Hold on, I'll think about it. Something good may have happened. The Braves in 1994. Anything good happened in 1994? No, nothing that good at all. Unless you're from Montreal, in which case it was worse than not good. But the Brewers just seem to have the Dodgers number. And post-game, that's what you focus on. What's going on in that clubhouse in Chavez Ravine? Let's start with Dave Roberts. Furious. I think he's furious for several reasons. And let's be clear. Number one, he's frustrated. When you are 2-10 in your last 12 games, when the objects in the mirror are much closer than they appear, and that's the Padres, forget the Giants because post-Devers, they're fading, not climbing, you get frustrated. Then when you come out and say that, hey, it seems like this team continues to sabotage itself. Too many mistakes. He's talking base running. He's talking hustle. He's talking just baseball play. That's what we talk about mistakes. We don't talk about the physical errors. We talk about the mental errors. The Yankees could talk about the same thing, and we'll get to them. But when you think that your team is sabotaging itself, you have to talk to your team, and you have to make some changes. You have to figure out what you're going to do to try to jerk the machine into a different gear, is how we used to put it. We have to grind some gears in order to do something to stop what's happening. Because in baseball, things tend to snowball because you play every day. You'd think that the break, the All-Star break, would provide some sort of natural marker which would have enabled the Dodgers to reset. But things happen during the course of the weekend, whether it's Freeman getting hit in the wrist, x-rays are negative. He could be okay. He may need a day. Mookie Betts is having the worst stretch of his career. So bad that Dave Roberts gave him the day off Saturday. This is good. So let me tell you what happened and then tell you why it's funny. So the manager comes out and says, yeah, we're going to give him a rest. We're going to give him a day, a mental break, a mental health day. Done it with players before. What you do is you say to the player, hey, you're not going to be in the lineup tomorrow. We're not going to pinch hit you. Don't even put your spikes on. Just stay out of the cage. Just come to work and be free. Because in baseball, the mental part of baseball is significant, very significant. If you're giving a player a day off, but you expect that they are available to pinch hit, then you tell them that too. It changes everything about the night before. It changes everything about the day of the game. So Betts got a breather. But Dave Roberts got a little ahead of himself. He said, I don't know how long it's going to be. It could be 1 night. It could be 2. But my expectation is he's going to be back in there tomorrow. Okay, this was giving him the day off on Saturday. But then it was made clear to the media that Betts will be their shortstop. Don't forget, he's not a shortstop. He's a right fielder. A Gold Glove, Hall of Fame right fielder who was playing shortstop, but I digress. It's hard enough to play shortstop and try to hit, but don't worry, pitching and hitting, easy, easy peasy. So Roberts gets it out there. Yeah, we're good. You know, it'll be my decision on how I feel. But I'll tell you one thing. We're not going to move him out of the 2 spot in the batting order because that's not a solution. When a manager comes out and says something, especially in LA, but really any of the 30 cities, you have to have spoken with your GM. Andrew Friedman does the lineups. I'm sorry, Andrew. You know I love you. But let's not try to pretend that Dave Roberts looks around and says, oh, I think I'll move Ohtani out of the 1 hole and I'll put Betts back in there and move Ohtani to the 2 hole. And then Andrew Friedman walks in the clubhouse, looks at the board and says, oh, we have a lineup change. It does not work that way. Ever. So what appears is that Dave may have gotten ahead of himself and gotten word out to the media, hey, we're not moving Betts. And then all of a sudden it was, you know what? We've got a lineup change, Davey. And so the Dodgers tried the lineup change on Sunday. They moved Ohtani back into the 2 hole. They moved Betts back in the leadoff. I think it was his first time. Ohtani's been leading off forever. I thought they'd move Ohtani out of the leadoff a long time ago. Got it totally wrong. Now that he's out of the leadoff, are you going to have Betts hit leadoff? And if he doesn't get hot, then you're going to move him back? Are you going to move him lower than 2? How many games do you give him? When you make a lineup change with a player who's used to being in the lineup at a certain spot, when you talk to the player about it, you don't say, hey, it's for a day. We'll see what happens here with the Dodgers. I'm a little worried with the Dodgers about some internal strife. Clayton Kershaw got the start yesterday, and he doesn't normally, he's not the center of negative attention or any sort of sabotage that happens off the field. But during his press avail after he pitched, he said, you know, they beat us. I'm not making anything of it. We need to play better tomorrow. But then he said, I don't have much to say. Quote, I'm going to get myself in trouble, so let's just call it. And that was the end of the press avail. When a veteran like Kershaw says that, hey, I've got nothing good to say, I might get in trouble, it may remind you of LeBron. Remember when LeBron was asked about something related to the Lakers? He said, the last time someone spoke up, they got traded. Talking about AD. Well, I don't want to get traded, so I'm not going to say a word. When Clayton Kershaw, who has the same pedigree as LeBron in terms of Hall of Fame, veteran status, leader of the team, you saw what happened during the All-Star Game when he was taken out after 2/3, standing ovation from both dugouts, reminiscent of me giving Roger Clemens a standing ovation in the World Series because that was his last game, which it wasn't, because then he decided to keep pitching with love and help from God and packages sent to his house. So Kershaw has a problem with the Dodgers, and generally you keep that inside the clubhouse. But for him to say what he said, is there a problem brewing with Dave Roberts? Is there a problem with anyone on the coaching staff, the pitching coach? Is there a problem with anyone in that clubhouse? As we watch the Dodgers season run toward the end, it's not if they don't repeat that we'll see changes, but if they have a first-round loss, they're going to make the playoffs. But if they have an early exit from the playoffs and then we see a change, let's go back to this day, July 21st, and maybe we will be able to figure out what the issue was. Until then, they'd be very smart to keep it quiet. Coca, this bud's for you. Actually, they're not a sponsor. 4869. Coca, this conversation about the New York Mets is for you. How happy are you that the Mets won yesterday to avoid the Reds sweeping them coming out of the All-Star break? You have to be happy, although the Mets did lose 2 out of 3, but you have to be happy. I know you're upset that Lindor is like 0 for his last 19 and Soto is 1 for his last 15, so you're totally despondent. But I think you should be happy because when you won a game, you avoided the sweep. They're not exactly falling so far behind the Phillies because the Phillies aren't winning. You're getting Francisco Alvarez back, who's been on a tear down in the minor leagues. So you're getting your catcher back. You watched David Wright get his jersey retired this weekend. What could be wrong? Were you worried about Pete Alonso's consecutive game streak? Was that what was aggravating you? Worried that he had some sort of contusion that would hold him out from his massive consecutive game streak? Do you know that Pete Alonso has played 354 straight games? Epic. Do you know that's the second longest current streak in baseball? Amazing. Pete Alonso didn't get the start yesterday, but don't worry. To get your consecutive game streak, you are allowed to pinch hit or be brought in as a defensive replacement. You just have to play in some way, shape, or form. They put Alonso in, like in the 7th inning. So his consecutive game streak continues. And I would like to give you a wait to see. And this wait to see is the biggest promise that I've made to you since Coke and I started this in 2019, because it's going to be about 15 years before this one will cash or not cash. Wait to see when we tell you something's going to happen. If it does, great. If it doesn't, fine. Pete Alonso will break Cal Ripken's consecutive games played of 2,632. Not. I couldn't do it, Coke. I was delivering it so great. People were listening saying, there's no way. Is he out of his mind? Is he on drugs on an early Monday morning? Who's going to catch Cal Ripken? Matt Olson? Matt Olson at the age of 30, 31 with 718 consecutive games? Yeah, he's got about another decade. Good luck. That's a record that won't be broken. The Mets started the season 45-24. Steve Cohen was tweeting. Everyone was feeling good. There was a vibe in New York. They were getting the casino. They were getting the vote. Everyone was happy. Soto's winning player of the month. Lindor starting the season well. No worries. Winning games without a rotation. People were stepping up. It was just heaven on earth. Well, guess what? That was 69 games. Yes, we chose that for a reason. Welcome to Nothing Personal. 45-24. Guess what they are since then? 11-20. Just FYI, they have the second worst record in baseball since June 13th. That's over a month of the season. When you're only better than the Washington Nationals over 1/6 of the season, you're saying to yourself, we may need to make some changes. If you are David Stearns, you have no choice but to add in the next 10 days. You've got to get help to that team. There's so many buyers out there, so many. The New York Yankees are a prime example of a team that has to buy. There are people who are calling on Brian Cashman to step up. Do you think the Yankees clubhouse deserves players? I love Judge. I love Stanton. There's no doubt about it. I want them to get help. Putting Stroman out there every 5 days is rough. The biggest story of the weekend for the Yankees had nothing to do with what happened when someone had a bat or someone was towing the rubber. The biggest story is that MLB is now investigating an incident that, for me, was easy to investigate. You see, Jazz Chisholm was standing on first base and all of a sudden, during a game, started looking in the Braves dugout. And he was looking in the dugout, making a few gestures toward the Braves dugout, like, get out of here, man. Don't look at me. Don't talk to me. Don't put my name in your mouth. And it looked like he was looking at Eddie Perez. Eddie Perez is a coach for the Braves. I know Eddie Perez. I'm trying to think of a nicer guy in the game than Eddie Perez. Maybe the third base coach for the Braves, Freddie Gonzalez. Maybe that's who's nicer. What Jazz thought is that Eddie Perez was making a motion to his head like, hey, Jazz, we're about to hit you in the head. And Jazz did not take kindly to that. There is no way Eddie Perez was suggesting that they were going to throw at the head of Jazz. What Eddie Perez says he was doing was, hey, you got to be smarter than that. That is not an uncommon sentiment sent toward Jazz by people both inside and outside of his organizations. That seems to me much more plausible than looking at Jazz Chisholm and saying, hey, we're going headhunting, because the essence of headhunting, if you interview Tony La Russa, would be you don't tell the person that you're going after their head, you just do it. It's not like you give a warning. Looking at a player and saying, hey, be smart. Aaron Boone, of course, had no choice but to back his player. Aaron Boone was like, I hope it didn't have anything to do with throwing it at his head, because obviously there's no place for that. That's certainly something that would not be okay, Boone said. I hope it didn't mean anything like that, because that would deserve some looking into. Do you know how MLB investigations start? Bring. Hey, it's cash. Cash. Yeah. Hey, could you look what happened? Did you see what happened with Jazz and Eddie? You got to look into that. They're throwing at my guy's head. It's just wrong. Cash, you got to calm down. I'm totally calm, but wait till you get the call from Randy Levine. Oh, hold on. I'm getting that call. Randy? Can't get a word in edgewise when Randy Levine calls MLB and says, investigate right now. Investigate this impropriety against my player. So MLB, of course, had to come out and say, okay, we'll investigate. MLB.com, which, as you may or may not remember, is MLB. Shh, don't tell anyone. They already reported that Perez was just telling Chisholm, dude, think about your actions. It's going to be the fastest investigation in the West. The Athletic got to Eddie Perez and he said, I just wanted him to be smart. That's it, man. Use your head. I have a lot of respect for Jazz. I like him. But I guess he didn't like what I had to say and got upset with me. Then Booney goes nuts. Everybody's crazy. MLB has to spend time investigating it. I hope that this is one of those investigations that disappears very quickly. That MLB just simply comes out and says, yes, investigation's over, no discipline whatsoever. We spoke to the parties involved, and that's all we're going to say on the matter. I would expect MLB not to be in the business of, yeah, we'd like to tell you that Eddie Perez was saying to Jazz, hey, just be smart, and that Jazz misinterpreted that. I don't think they want to get into that detail. Just be done with it. Just be done with it. The Yankees. Did you watch that game on Saturday? I was at a restaurant watching the game, and they were down 5 runs twice. And I kept looking up. I'm like, oh, God, is that another home run? Did they just score again? They end up winning that game 12-9. They did take the series, which would be good, except the team they're chasing did better. They still trail the Blue Jays by 3 games in the AL East. The Blue Jays are 1 day closer every day to getting help by July 31st. The Yankees 1 day closer to absolute, unadulterated, overpay panic time. That is a division. That is a race. That is a bunch of teams. I can't wait. The Rogers Group, who owns the Blue Jays, Steinbrenner, who owns the Yankees, and we're not even mentioning, why would we? But we could. John Henry and Tom Werner in Boston. Oh, God, it's going to be fun. I want to mention something about what happened with the Diamondbacks this weekend. I think it's very important to talk about this. And I promised Coca that I would never introduce something that way. So I will just say that Ketel Marte was put on the restricted list by the Diamondbacks. And the reason given by his manager was that he needed a mental day. And there are moments when a player needs a day that you don't put him on the restricted list. You just don't play them. You maybe let him pinch hit, or maybe it's one of those days that we talked about with Betts where you just keep your bat in the rack and you keep your cleats in the clubhouse. We loved alliterations when it came to giving guys days off, but we didn't put a player on the restricted list unless we thought that there would be a large number of games missed, or if we had some sort of roster crunch. Well, Marte was put on the restricted list, and the reason given is that his home had been vandalized. and he was just not in any position to play. The old David, the president, would have been far less interested in that as an excuse to not do your job. One of the ways in which I've changed over the years and gotten some distance from the way things were when I was president of the team is that the things going on in the lives of your employees absolutely impact the performance. There are people who can get away with performing at elite levels with no distraction, total compartmentalization, regardless of what's happening. Most players burglarized. Did I say vandalized? Which is it, Coca? Things were stolen. Well, Coca in my ear on a Monday morning telling me that I said vandalized when it was really burglarized, and I'm in the middle of a thought about this moment that I've had where I have more empathy toward players, and you totally ruin it by telling me that, and now I don't even remember what I was saying. I had a whole thing ready to say, oh, this is going to help the likability meter. I do mean that, though. His house was burglarized, Coca. Things were stolen. There's a whole group. Did you read that this weekend, Coca? There was like a guilty plea of the pawn shop dealer who was selling Joe Burrow's stuff. All I can think of is how great is it that Joe Burrow is smarter than O.J. Simpson? I don't know. Isn't that a strange thing to think of? But it really does make sense. O.J. Simpson ended up serving prison time because he went to rob the people who had what he thought was his stuff. He wanted to get his stuff back. Can you imagine Joe Burrow walking into a pawn shop and saying, wait a minute, that's all my stuff, and then robbing the pawnbroker and then going to jail for that? Joe Burrow wouldn't do that. But it is very, very difficult to deal with all of these burglaries that are going on. Now, it's obvious that players have security systems. Some players turn their alarm on, some don't. It is easy for internet sleuths to figure out what's what and who's who. They did a whole show on it on Apple TV, which we reviewed here, called Your Friends and Neighbors, where, hey, it may be your friends and neighbors who are taking your stuff. Now, if you have cameras installed all over the outside of your house and inside of your house, and things are alarmed, and you keep copious track, and there is no way to enter the house in any window or any door without actually being on camera, like good quality, not this grainy stuff, like who is that guy? Is that a guy? Is that a girl? Is that a hoodie or is that a dress? I'm talking 64-bit stuff here, Coca. Clear as day. You want to rob Marte? Where are the cameras? Now, the bad part is that when you're an athlete, everyone knows your damn schedule. Everyone knows when you're not home, and that is the majority of burglaries. They don't want you to be home. They want you not to be home. There are the rare exceptions, but very rare. The reason why people have loud dogs or pretend loud dogs or security systems or obvious cameras everywhere is to deter people saying, hey, yes, you may know I'm out of town. You may know that I have games or whatever it is I'm doing, but you're not going to want to come in here. But where I feel badly is that I don't know that I would have, back in my day, been at all amenable to having Marte sit. He's one of the best players on my team. We are fighting to stay relevant while we're making a decision about whether or not we are going to buy, sell, hold, stay, put. I need you playing. Now, he didn't stay long on the restricted list. I can't even imagine he was on there, I think, just for a day, Coke. I believe he played. I had this all in my head. This is a live show on a Monday. Makes me so happy. I believe Marte already is back. He plays today. Thank you, Coca. He will be back. He missed the weekend. I don't know. $400,000 worth of stuff stolen. It stinks. It's a violation. When your house is robbed, you feel as though you don't want to live there anymore because someone else. It's bad enough when guests stay long enough that they smell like fish. The reality is when someone's in the house who's not supposed to be and steals your stuff, it's hard. And I just was not, I didn't want to hear it. I understand what the Diamondbacks did. I'm glad Marte is back. I'm very glad that this pawn shop dealer, Coca, pled guilty. He's going to prison as he should. It's an entire thing. It's almost like the bling ring that these pawn shops went out to these syndicates and said, hey, we'll move the stuff that you steal. Get me stuff from these players, and we got it handled. The FBI and the authorities went into not just the shop, but into the place where they store their items and found all of these things right there stolen from the athletes' houses. There's no getting out of that. That's how you plead guilty, because you're guilty. So you want to talk to Samson is something that we do on Wednesdays. Please. It is something happened, Coca, this weekend, and we have to call Meadowlark's IT department. I have no idea why this is, but I'm now getting alerts every time someone calls 631-377-4869. That number again for So You Want to Talk to Samson is 631-DPS-4869. Every Wednesday, hour 2, we're going to answer your questions. You may hear your voice on the show because we play voicemails and then answer the questions. What I don't want, if IT is listening, see this phone right here. Please do not ding me every time a voicemail comes in. I listen to every one of them. I don't want to listen to them as they come. I have a set, you'd be shocked to know, part of the week when I listen to the voicemails and then choose with Coca which to talk about on the show. But not every time, because I don't know what's with all you people in these time zones. It's like we have a show that's listened to around the world. Wink, wink, it is. But I'm on Eastern time. I am not logged into the MPDS. I'm happy to have a whole conversation with you, Coca. I'm happy to stop the show and explain to you that I did not do one thing in my phone to start getting notifications. These phantom notifications from companies are enough to make me insane. Anyway, I'm not having this argument with you. I'm simply not. I am not arguing with you during a show when no one can hear you. Bring it to me on Friday. In my right ear telling me vandalized versus burglarized. Well, I'm about to be liked. It's an outrage. Let's go to the review. It is my favorite time of the day when I get to watch my movie. And it was a very, very good weekend. I love having the 23 hours in the day that I have. Friday night's an easy one. You can stay up all night and watch movies because you know you've got Saturday to R&R, rest and recover. You get a run in, then you watch another movie. You know what movie you're reviewing Thursday, so you got to watch that again. It's from your top 100. All of these great things happen. And I told you Friday I was going to watch The Phoenician Scheme, and I warned you, if you're not a Wes Anderson fan, don't watch it. I didn't warn you enough. The Phoenician Scheme with Benicio del Toro and Michael Cera puts the Wes in Wes Anderson. It puts the que in quirky. It puts the g in genius. I should have said G. I should have said G in genius. Having one of those days, Coca. I loved it. Here's the thing. If you're a Wes Anderson fan, watch The Phoenician Scheme. If you're not a Wes Anderson fan, don't watch The Phoenician Scheme. If you think that he's too self-absorbed, if you think it's too weird, I don't agree because I love his movies. And the concept of this movie, it's Benicio del Toro, who I had not thought about in this way. What a career. When you can go Usual Suspects to Sicario to The Phoenician Scheme, you're talking about range. This is a guy that goes two ways. This is like Ohtani level range. Go watch The Phoenician Scheme. If you don't like Wes Anderson, give him a shot, but don't start with The Phoenician Scheme. If you're looking to start Wes Anderson, I would go right to Royal Tenenbaums, and that will give you an idea of where you stand. I've got 2 episodes left of Dying for Sex with Michelle Williams I will watch the last two today and review it tomorrow. It's a series on Hulu, highly decorated by the Emmys. I believe 9 nominations. If you love Catastrophe the way I did with Rob Delaney, he's in Dine for Sex. We'll review that tomorrow. 2 episodes left. Thank you to everyone who watches and listens. We are approaching 10 days left in July. June was a record-breaking month. We are hoping that July breaks the record that we set in June. Please make sure that you are subscribing on Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel. It is not below me to ask. Please do it. We appreciate it. Tell your friends who are listening and watching the clips, because our clips that are done by Jack and Coca, they're everywhere. TikTok and Instagram and just YouTube, the shorts, the mids, the longs. It's a whole thing. And we at Nothing Personal, we give you 10 hours every week. We are clipping things left, right, and center, and people are watching. Spread the word. Don't be ashamed. I would appreciate that. And you know our show. You know that I make mistakes, and you know that I correct them. I got 2 corrections for you. One is old, and I forgot in my list of corrections the other day. Do you remember when I said that the home run derby, the kid who robbed the home run from Junior Caminero, I said, how great is it to have a 5-foot wall? And that's the smallest wall in baseball. I had the biggest Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan brain cloud ever, and thank you for correcting it. Obviously, the 5-foot wall is not the shortest wall. Have you been to Fenway Park and Pesky Pole? Have you been to Dodger Stadium, for crying out loud? So I got that wrong. Thank you for all of you sent in the correction. People are listening. Here's another one, and this is a bad correction. We were talking about the trade deadline, and someone wrote, Happy Friday. Twice this week, you've talked about the Braves making trades before the World Series. Sorry, but it was 2021, not 2019 like you kept saying. And why do you never mention Jock on that list? You only mention Rosario, Soler, and Duvall. Not only did I do it on this show, Coca, I was talking about the trade deadline on Levitard. I was talking about it on CBS, and I kept mentioning Atlanta and what they did in 2019. And the number of corrections I got from the people who are paid to listen, 0. Number of corrections from people who listen out of loyalty, love, and appreciation of what we do every day, plentiful. There's the correction. Thank you. J.C. Tretter resigned from the NFLPA. Big move. I had 2 wait-to-sees that were part of the show when I sent the rundown to Coca and we started our pre-production process where he looks at the rundown, adds stuff, subtracts stuff, changes the order. One of the wait-to-sees I had in the show, and there is no proof of this, it's not official. It will not be on davidsamsonpodcast.com, where there is a document that tracks everything we do, plus all the great merch that Coca wears. A wait-to-see I had was easy, that J.C. Tretter would not be the interim director of the NFLPA. After Howell resigned, they needed an interim director, and everyone assumed it would be Tretter. And I said, no chance, toilet pants. Wait to see was going to be confirmed when it came out that he was one of the 2 finalists, and I was going to double down and say, there is no way with what J.C. Tretter has been associated with Lloyd Howell, with the shenanigans of the expense reports, and all the things that have been so widely reported about Lloyd Howell, talking about stepping on a guy when he's down, leaking internal emails about, hey, Tretter is as much responsible as anyone. Pablo Torre doubling down, saying J.C. Tretter is a huge part of this story. You can't have the union continue with him. Easy as 1, 2, 3, ABC, Michael and your brothers. He resigned. And he resigned in a very, very interesting way. He gave an exclusive interview. And what he said was, he was with Jonathan Jones, our amazing, amazing coworker at CBS. Brilliant. J.C. Tretter met with a few PR people, and he came up with a plan. The plan is that I'm not going to ever let anyone see me sweat and say, hey, that I was in any way culpable for anything that's gone on with the grievance hearing about injuries, fake injuries that we covered. I'm going to have to cop to that and just say I made a mistake. There's no getting around that. That was my name. But in terms of the collusion, grievance, quashing, let's not tell anyone about that. I'm got to make sure people know that's not me. I also got to make sure that people understand that I'm not in any way doing a Machiavellian plot to take over, which, of course, when you say that, you are doing that. But the plan is, let's play the family card. It's always one of my favorite things. When someone doesn't get what they want, they don't get a job, they're about to get fired, they say, oh, I'm quitting first. And they say, I need to spend more time with my family. I don't want to have my kids grow up without me being there. I give my heart and soul to this job, and it was just too much. He literally said, this is J.C. Tretter, over the last couple of days, it's gotten very, very hard for my family, and that's something I can't deal with. So I'm going to push back here just a tiny bit to the embattled J.C. Tretter, who is not going to be voted as the interim director because he's not capable of doing it. What exactly happened in the last 2 days? Are we talking about the fact that Howell resigned? You knew Howell wasn't going to make it. There was no chance. And now everyone's blaming, oh, he went to a strip club. That's why he resigned. That was merely the excuse that could be given. Lloyd Howell was not going to survive because of what happened with the grievances, with keeping things quiet, with all the other things that he did. It had nothing to do with abusive expenses. Now, I've fired people over abusive expenses before, no doubt. The worst part is when it's not the final straw, it's out of nowhere, and you have to make an example because you cannot have expense account abuse. You know who you are. I've done it. When that is found out that Lloyd Howell would land in Fort Lauderdale and go to Tootsie's, that the thought was, all right, now we have a way to have him leave and he'll just resign 5 minutes before we fire him. Nobody's fooled by that. Were you? But if you're not going to be fooled by that, you can't be fooled by J.C. Tretter saying, hey, it's all been butterflies and unicorns with my family. There's been no criticism here over the years that I've been here. Barely public. No one knows a thing. J.C. Tretter's been in the middle of this story way longer than even Pablo Torre has been reporting it. And that was more than in the last couple days. J.C. Tretter has been in the crosshairs, I would tell you, for years. So when the PR person says, hey, we're going to make you a family man. Let's say you're resigning and not seeking to be the interim. And let's say it's because of family. What the PR person, unless the PR person literally stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night, the PR person wouldn't have JC or anyone say, hey, it just happened in the last couple days. Because you ruin all credibility for any quote that comes after that, and there were so many of them. It's like he gave an interview, and Jonathan Jones was the perfect conduit for this, in order for all of you to make sure you understand, hey, I'm the good guy here. I don't want to plot against Howell. What I'm upset about is the fact that these players just don't care enough. We took it very seriously, our responsibility as chief strategic officer. I was very serious when we were figuring out the CBA and working with all of the different team reps, the management council. He even went back to make it clear that he didn't support Howell when he's been accused of, and there's reporting that is clear as day, that he was instrumental in Howell becoming the NFL Players Association executive director. Now, Tretter would have you think, I got to tell you, it was down to two guys and I was in favor of the other guy. As a matter of fact, my goal was to bring power to the people, power to the players. Let the players decide, which is really team reps, but let the team reps decide. He went public, Tretter did, telling us that when the new executive director was voted for just a few years ago, that his suggestion was that it would be David White, not Lloyd Howell. But for whatever reason, the players went against his recommendation. So don't associate me with Howell. I didn't like him then, don't like him now, had nothing to do with him. The crazy part is that what Tretter said after that in this article on CBS is, just so you know, we were involved in the search. I liked the other guy, but I never told members of the committee what our preference was. Members of the committee did not share their preference with the team reps, with the board, which are the team reps. Can you imagine hiring a group of people, like having your executive council in baseball, and your executive council is made up of owners, and the executive council meets, and they vet people to buy teams, or they vet things, whatever they vet, which is a lot, and then they keep it to themselves. They call a board meeting, they stand up and say, we've spent 3 months looking over the books about Steve Cohn, and yeah, we just, we're going to do a vote here for him to buy the Mets. No, it doesn't work that way. What the executive council does is they stand up and they say, yeah, we've met and we've voted unanimously to blank in favor of him being an owner, not in favor. We are suggesting the resolution passes. What is the use of this committee if you don't share your preference or the results of your work with the board? What J.C. Tretter would have you believe, and this is typical, and it's just wrong, what he'd have you believe is that the reason not to share is not to influence. You're put in that position to influence. That's the reason why you're elected into a job, a position in a union or in a company, wherever you work. That's like you being the CEO of your company. Hey, I have my opinion. I'm not going to share it. That's your job, dude. Share it. But now it's done. And so what will be the result? The result will be that the NFL Players Association is going to hire a new interim director. There are a couple names being bandied about. That will happen this week. It will be clear that it's an interim director because they've got time before the next CBA, which doesn't run out until the end of the decade. And they will have plenty of time to bring in a full-time director. And believe me, the search will be quite different than the search was for Lloyd Howell, in that we will be told publicly, and as members of the media, all of the steps that they're taking to make this search the best search in the history of the NFLPA. You'll start to see articles, oh, there's so much work to be done by the Players Association. This is such an important time. We got to find the right guy. Who can that be? And I say guys shouldn't, but that's why I say it. Guess what? All the things that Tretter says he didn't do, the Machiavellian things, trying to control the board, control the votes, making sure your guy's in, that's called a Tuesday. I don't know why people just don't admit it. Of course I was trying to control the process to my benefit. I believe that my benefit is aligned with the benefit of the union and its members, but I'm not going to push for something that's to the benefit of someone else and not me. All the people who stand up and say, I'm so selfless that I would negotiate myself out of a job. I'm so selfless that I would have a process in place that would result in me being gone or in me having less power. Whenever the results are that, believe me, it was not intended. I'm okay with that. The new process in the NFLPA will most certainly include people who are maneuvering both behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, from a PR standpoint, out-facing, from a PR standpoint, inside the organization, who are positioning themselves to have power. That's the nature of power. What's the use of power if you don't have it and if you don't have control? That's the whole point of it. Yet he ran from it. I understand. And he ended the interview with a classic. Just a classic quote J.C. Tretter did. I want to read it verbatim. JC Tretter resigning. He said, I'm not resigning because what I've been accused of is true. I'm not resigning in disgrace. I'm resigning because this has gone too far for me and my family, and I've sucked it up for 6 weeks. And I felt like I've been kind of left in the wind, taking shots for the best of the organization. Here's a little lesson when you submit your resignation. Don't say that you're not resigning for the very reason that everyone knows that you're resigning, because it happened right before you were not going to get promoted or you were going to actually be let go. Just have a quick statement. You can definitely give the interview and give background information to someone in the media to get word out. Sources say the resignation had nothing to do with X. It had to do with Y. We'll be able to look past that and nothing personal, but most people won't. But when you come out yourself and say, I'm not resigning for all the reasons that it is known that he resigned, and then you drop in, I'm telling you, please believe me, it's family. Give me a small break. Nothing personal pick of the day. Nothing personal pick of the day. Corbin Day was Friday. I would like to address the section of the audience who bets against Corbin with me every time Corbin pitches. The Texas Rangers are 8-10 in his 18 starts. Corbin Day has been an absolute loser financially. And if you're asking me why I can't stop, because I won't stop. We had Corbin Day, Tigers over the Rangers. The Tigers over the Rangers, only minus 123, and we couldn't win it. Tigers couldn't score. It was ridiculous. Luckily, we came back with Crochet and the Red Sox on Sunday over the Cubs. The Red Sox, who hadn't scored, I think, in 4 weeks, were able to win a game, pinch hit, home run. Bregman beat the Cubs, who still are tied or close to the best record in baseball. So we went 1-1. We're 96-91. We got a big one tonight. I got a pretty easy rule. If you can find a team on a 10-game winning streak that's an underdog, you play into the streak. The Brewers, according to our friends at DraftKings, odds subject to change, are plus 104 against the Mariners. Now, it is true Vanessa Kirby is one hell of a pitcher. However, when you've got Woodruff on the bump and you're plus 104 and your team doesn't seem to lose, we're going that direction. I also had a wait to see ready right here. Right here. Ohtani's pitching for the Dodgers. Only Coca will ever be able to admit it, but it was right here. Shohei Ohtani will not go 4 innings pitched when he throws tonight. And then Dave Roberts came out and said Ohtani's only going 3. I swear to God, I had the wait to see first. Ohtani's pitching tonight. What a great series is happening. Yankees, Blue Jays are playing each other. Yankees starting the series 3 back. Paul Skeens is on the mound. Don Kelly is no longer a candidate for manager of the year. The Pirates stink, but watching Paul Skeens is still something. His over-under in Ks is only 7, which sounds so enticing. But we're not taking it. But when you're thinking about what games to watch, I would strongly suggest that you focus on the games you play, so Brewers, Mariners. But when you got a late game, you can find an early game. The Yankees-Blue Jays series is going to be spectacular. Rodon is actually, they're both minus money. Rodon against Gausman. Very important that Rodon wins game 1 of this series. You don't want to fall 4 back. Remember, we talked about Mariners-Astros. The Astros won the last game of that, and now they're still 4 back of the Astros. And they'd won the first 2, so close to the sweep that we discussed. Don't underestimate the importance of a sweep when you're trying to make up ground. Winning 2 out of 3, it helps, but not tremendously. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we have to talk about the Washington Commanders and the Cleveland Guardians. It's too good not to discuss right after the break. Welcome back to Nothing Personal on Monday, July 21st, 2025. We got another hour for you. Plenty to cover. We spend a lot of time trying to avoid being told what to do, whether we're inside CBS, we're inside Meadowlark, whether I was working at Morgan, wherever I was. I never loved to be told what to do, even though sometimes the writing would be on the wall. Right now, with Donald Trump as president, I think it's clear what law firms are doing, what companies are doing. You are trying as hard as you can to not be a target. Sometimes the way to avoid being a target is that you surrender prior to any attack. Pre-negotiated surrender, I like to call it. It's a good concept. It basically allows you to avoid any sort of the possibility of an outcome that you can't control. The thing that you want to not have happen is you wake up in the morning and you go on Twitter, X, Blue Sky, whatever you go on, True Social, doesn't matter, and you see that Donald Trump has tweeted about you and your name. Josh Harris, the owner of the Washington Commanders, he wakes up and he says, uh-oh. Trump says that he wants the name changed back to the Washington Redskins. Of course, he also mentioned the Cleveland Guardians, wants them back to be the Cleveland Indians. He impugns the owners of the Guardians and his friend, Josh Harris. Basically saying, listen, I know you're having some problems with the financing of the stadium. I know that we had this big celebration. We announced Ted Leonis' style, hey, we're going to have a deal done, right? Oh, not yet, maybe soon. Now we got it, now we don't. Puts the pre and pre-Sternberg mature in St. Pete. It's constant, these deals that are announced and then, oh, not quite done, almost done. The deal with DC, we've talked about, there's more updates on that, but the funding of the stadium, new for the Commanders in DC, not quite as done as you may think. So you're reading through the tweet by Donald Trump, and you're just waiting, and you're saying, please do not in any way associate this with our deal. Just come out and say it like Trump talked about Pete Rose, and then we'll go visit him, and then we'll reinstate Pete Rose off the permanently ineligible list. Everything's going to be fine. Oh, God, we're going to give money, we're going to donate, and we're going to take care of it so we as a law firm aren't going to suffer, and oh, God, we're still suffering. Sometimes when you do a deal with the devil, you know it's not as good as doing a deal with the devil you don't know. Sometimes doing deals with both sides of the devil ends up with you getting burned. He basically weighed in, Trump did, and said, the Washington whatevers should immediately change their name back to the Washington Redskins football team. I want to draw your attention to the Washington whatevers. The way he wrote it, and listen, you know how I feel about grammar. What's the apostrophe doing there? The Washington whatevers would not have an apostrophe. And you know they're called the Commanders. Come on. Just say the Washington Commanders should immediately. Now, I love using capital letters. It really shows. This is what I want you to read. It's not that I want you to change your name back to the Redskins. I want you to do it immediately. Obviously, knowing you can't just change the name immediately. Like by this season, it's done. Too late. Maybe by next season, the 2026 season. All right, maybe. Can't do it immediately. So why put that in caps? There's a big clamoring for this, Trump continued. Likewise, the Cleveland Indians, one of the 6 original baseball teams, well done, research team, with a storied past. Well, I wouldn't say that anyone who's a Cleveland Indians fan would say they have a storied past, but I digress. Our great Indian people in massive numbers want this to happen. I didn't see a quote in there from any Indian people. But anyway, so he does this, and it becomes a big story. So what do you do if you're the president of the United States and you're creating news, which is As president of a baseball team, I felt powerful that I could create news just by calling up a reporter and saying, hey, there's a chance that we're going to trade Beckett. Oh, all of a sudden, that's newsworthy. Well, that seems interesting. Let me take this sort of power out for a spin. Imagine being the president of the United States of America, the most powerful person in any room. So a few hours later, another statement, another tweet from Trump. My statement on the Washington Redskins has totally blown up, but only in a very positive way. I may put a restriction on them that if they don't change the name back to the original Washington Redskins and get rid of the ridiculous moniker Washington Commanders, I won't make a deal for them to build a stadium in Washington. Uh-oh. Josh Harris saw that one. And then panic set in. Now, it is true, in only hours, he learned that it's not the Washington whatevers, it's the Washington Commanders. He further learned that when you are going to threaten, it is way better to threaten with something that actually can hurt, because sticks and stones can break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Here's the sticks and stones: money. Financial support for the ballpark that Josh Harris and the NFL have to replace FedEx Field, which is no longer FedEx Field. Why I just called it FedEx Field, giving attention to FedEx, who pulled their sponsorship because of Daniel Snyder. Where do the Commanders play now, Coca? Northwest, as in the old airline? That's an old reference to anyone out there. Anyone out there, and there's only like 32% of you, I love you. How is it possible that Trump could get in the way of financing? Is it true that there has to be some federal involvement? Yes. In the District of Columbia to get that deal done, while it is true that the council has authority and the D.C. mayor has none, and the D.C. mayor may or may not have it as part of the budget or what the D.C. mayor is going to fight for, but the reality is that there will be need. There will be the need at that stadium site for the federal government to have a say, a small stool at the table. And when you give a small stool to the federal government, this current federal government is the same as every federal government. It doesn't matter which side of the aisle on. I assure you, that small stool gets on steroids. It becomes a huge stool. And when you have to placate a stool, you put little cushions on the bottom of the legs of the stool. You try to keep it as quiet as possible. You may even put a cushion on top to make it comfy so nobody's back hurts. What you don't want is for that stool to somehow throw out thumbtacks that end up on the seats of everyone else at the table, totally screwing with everything and everybody. So what do you do if you're Josh Harris? The first one, that ridiculous, the Washington whatevers, I'll ignore that. The second one, I cannot ignore that at all. I very clearly have to now go speak to the president about this to find out what exactly he is going to do, how serious he is about this. Forget the blustery tweets or comments or off-the-cuff statements when traveling. When you have access to power, you have to be able to discern what is being used to show power and what is being used to keep power. Keeping power, no problem. Say whatever you want. Showing power is actually effectuating a change or doing something. The NFL is going to get involved. Josh Harris is going to get involved because that is a far more critical problem given the reality of what happened when that DC and their exclusive window that they had with this deal that it was announced, that window is basically closed. Josh Harris now has the ability to take his team elsewhere. He can start negotiating again with Virginia, again with Maryland. He can pull a Chiefs and try to get states against each other, Kansas and Missouri. He can pull a Bears and try to get cities and counties against each other, buying land in different places. The deal that he thought he had, it's done now. It's like St. Petersburg with the Tampa Bay Rays. Are you seeing how this works? You have no reason at all to go down the path that you were blazing if you find a better path. The next thing you'll read is that Maryland, Virginia, they stood up and they've got an offer on the table. They're ready to bring the Commanders, give them a deal. What does Josh Harris want? You know what he wants. It has nothing to do with D.C., Maryland, or Virginia. He needs, because he answers to the NFL and the other owners, and he's using money from the pot that is grown by the NFL, that is like a stadium fund, that is part of a contribution to all of these new facilities. They've got this huge, huge multi-billion-dollar fund. And guess what? You're going to talk to the NFL and you're going to do the best deal you have, regardless of the location, because for a football stadium, as we've learned everywhere, you got to drive 40 minutes 8 times a year, maybe 9 once it's 18 games. It can be 9 every other year now with 17 games. You're going to do it. Would it be sexy and exciting to actually be in D.C.? Is the juice actually worth the squeeze? I don't know. What about the Guardians? They've got a serious situation, because Trump not only was addressing the Commanders and the Redskins, but he actually just came out and said Cleveland should do the same with the Cleveland Indians. The owner of the Cleveland baseball team, Matt Dolan, who is very political, has lost 3 elections in a row because of that ridiculous name change. What he doesn't understand is that if he changed the name back to the Cleveland Indians, he might actually win an election. Indians are being treated very unfairly. This is a quote from our president. MEGA, make Indians great again. Do you see what's missing in that about the keep power, show power? There's no action in that. There's no true existential threat in that. So what the Guardians did is they immediately, because they knew in what category they were being mentioned along with the Commanders, they sent out their president, Chris Antonetti, with a response. I understand there are very different perspectives on the decision we made a few years ago, but it's a decision we made, and we've gotten the opportunity to build the brand as the Guardians over the last 4 years, and we're excited about the future that's in front of us. Outstanding. Why didn't the Commanders have the same response to this? Well, it's nothing personal. Aficionados, you know the answer to that. Because they can't. They can't come out with something that strong saying, hey, nice tweet, don't care, we're good. Because what the Cleveland Guardians are not in the market for is anything federal related. Now, are they risking an audit? Is Matt Dolan, in fact, risking losing elections? I, of course, associate the Cleveland Guardians with Paul Dolan, with his father, his son, Blitzer. Didn't associate it with Matt Dolan. That said, don't panic, Cleveland. It's going to be the Guardians. That said, panic, Commanders. It is very possible that this will work, and it's going to go back to be the Redskins. However, the immediately part is the part that will not stick. Wait to see when we tell you something's going to happen. If it does, fine. If it doesn't, fine. We always revisit our wait to sees. Here's the one for today. Shohei Ohtani will not pitch 4 innings tonight. No, get rid of that. What's the other one? Wait to see. J.C. Tretter will... No, I can't do that one. Third one. Wait to see. Neither the Commanders nor the Guardians will change their name prior to 2027. Why do I have that in there like that? Because I want to collect it. I don't want to sit around for 15 years and say, oh, they're never going to change their name. I'm just saying immediately, NGTH, not going to happen. Wait, what was my first wait to see? Oh, that was a joke, Coca, that Pete Alonso won't pass Cal Ripken. Of course he won't pass Cal Ripken. I mean, we could put that in the official wait to see. Pete Alonso is going to get to 2,632 games. That's preposterous. It's an unbreakable record, but added to the wait to see, I like getting things wrong. So the minute he sits for a game or gets hurt, we get to collect on that. Boom. It's 2 wait to sees then today, Coca. I like the idea of wearing T-shirts. I'm more of a button-down guy, but I do wear T-shirts. I like getting shirts when I do a race. I like getting shirts when I'm somewhere and want to remind me of a great moment or a great place or a great city. The old message shirts, those are something, aren't they? Did you watch the WNBA All-Star Game this weekend? Are you one of the more than 3.44 million people who watched? Because that's a wait to see. Were you despondent that Caitlin Clark wasn't playing, but you still were interested? Were you squinting your eyes at your 32-inchers saying, wait a minute, is that a T-shirt they're wearing? What does that say? What does that say? Hold on. It looks like pay me down my money. Is this Springsteen? Wait, let me get my glasses. So you put on the old spectacles, the old plus 175ers, and it said, pay us what you owe us. I took off my glasses and I said, that can't be the T-shirt that these players are wearing. There's no way that these women, these professional basketball players are wearing something that is so counter management and a message to Adam Silver. Adam Silver. Yes, I said it. Yeah, Kathy Engelbert too, but mostly Adam Silver. Pay us what you owe us? What does that mean to you? Now, there's been a lot of talk about the WNBA collective bargaining situation right here on Nothing Personal. I've told you that the WNBA players are in for a rude surprise if they think there are going to be the type of mass changes that will lead to the type of enrichment that they think is coming their way. I tried to explain what it is for a collective bargaining agreement to be negotiated when management is not in a position right now to give what you think because they're still trying to get back to par. I've told you all that. Now, the people running the union for the WNBA, the WNBA Players Association, they're all putting themselves in a position to get absolutely slammed, raising the level of expectation amongst players to unreasonable heights, to the point where these women are having a negotiating session coming out and saying, God, that was terrible. We covered it on the show last week. 40 people during the All-Star event, 40 players were a part of a negotiating session saying, God, this was terrible. We got nothing done. Meanwhile, what I told you is it's exactly the process. Everything's fine. You've got to do a better job of managing your expectations. Then you come out in a shirt that says, pay us what you owe us. What's your view of you being owed something? Is your view like mine? If I do something for you and I know that I am doing it at a rate and then I don't get paid that rate, you owe me money. If I make $10 an hour and I work 2 hours and my paycheck is $10 before taxes, you owe me $10. I work 2 hours. $10 an hour. That's $20, not 10. When you make a bet and you lose, you owe the person. Now, it doesn't much happen when countries make bets and spend money and have deficits. But as you know from James Caan and Honeymoon in Vegas, bets between people, those get settled. The T-shirt, pay us what you owe us, would somehow imply that there is something that the WNBA owners and the WNBA personnel, Adam Silver, Kathy, the NBA owners, that somehow they were doing something wrong. They underpaid them. Now, you may think you're underpaid as an employee, but then your shirt would say, pay us what we're worth. That'd be better than pay us what you owe us. How about we want higher pay? How about we deserve more than $2,575 for playing this game? That'd be a good shirt. How about with the money that you're making now? No, I can't do that. Can't do that unless you're in the media and you're just plain ignorant, fighting a battle because you think it's your battle to fight. And there are plenty of people on the internet doing that very thing. They're just coming out and talking about things like, oh man, these women are getting absolutely screwed. I don't quite understand how that happens. When we come out and we are reporting that the WNBA has been an absolute money suck for the owners and for the NBA, you can't come out and refute that with what the new TV deal is. It's completely irrelevant. You can't come out and say, well, there's expansion happening and look at the expansion fees. Therefore, we deserve and we're owed X, Y, and Z. It's not how it works in finance. When you run a company, you know your financials. There are carried forward losses that happen. There are various accounting regularities, not irregularities, regularities that show profit, loss, whatever they show. The reality, though, is always based on cash in, cash out. It's not based on, oh, look, our team is worth $1 billion now, therefore we are back to even, we're good. Because you only realize that money after a transaction. When there is a valuation of the New York Liberty that's high, that's great. That is great for the owners of the Liberty. It doesn't do one thing for the owners of the other teams. When the expansion team in Golden State's doing great and now is being maybe valued at $500 million or $800 million or $1.2 billion, all of that is fine. It doesn't change how the negotiations are going to go with the Players Association. There will be gains. The players will make more money. There will be more money for the All-Star Game. But if you think that there's a direct correlation between the new media rights deal and the fact that all these dollars seem to be flowing into the hands of the owners, all you're doing is making a mess. You're making it so that a labor stoppage becomes even more likely. While we have said that a labor stoppage in the WNBA is a certainty, it is not the job of the media, in my opinion, or of the Players Association specifically to mislead the players down a path that will not end well for them. WNBA president is Nneka Ogwumike, and Nneka Ogwumike said, we see the growth of the league, and as it stands, the current salary system is not really paying us what we're owed. Trying to explain the t-shirts. You got it wrong. You could have said it's not paying us what we're worth, and you would have had a better audience, a more receptive audience. But she kept going. We want to be able to have that fair share moving forward, especially as we see all the investment going in, and we want to be able to have our salaries reflected in a structure that makes sense for us. Amen. That's leading a players association. We want our fair share moving forward. You're not going to get an argument publicly from anybody on that. We see what's happening here. We want to learn about it. We want to learn what it means for the health of the league. And then we like our salaries to reflect a structure that makes sense. Love it. You don't want Angel Reese out there saying, hey, these negotiations are disrespectful. Angel Reese saying, obviously, women's basketball is skyrocketing. It's important for us to get what we want now, not just now, but for the future as well. It's really nice to have vets that may not be playing for 10 more years, but they are speaking for us because they know how important it is right now. Right now. Give it to me now. You can't have this many players talking. Phoenix Mercury had a player, came out and said the CBA current offer is a slap in the face. New York Liberty had a player come out and said, hey, we're not going to settle for the minimum. So many talkers. They need to learn a little lesson here. Shh. Keep it down. Have one messenger to the public trying to curry favor in your direction. Keep the focus inside the negotiating room, inside the four walls, around that table. Don't come out every day with the update of, oh, this was bad, this was bad, this was good, this was okay, we have to do this, we have to do that. It's overwhelming to the audience. They don't want to hear it. It's not helping. Remember what we talked about when you go public? You have to know who you're talking to. Are you talking to fans? Are you talking to your teammates? Are you talking to owners? What is your plan? When all these players are coming out, they mistakenly think that they should be and are talking to the fans and the media, and that somehow that will have an influence on what happens in the room because management will be shamed into movement during these negotiations. Well, as a former member of management, I can only tell you that's not how we move. It's not that shame that we talk about. So, my suggestion for all the WNBA players, stop wearing t-shirts, stop talking to the media as though you're getting something that you likely won't get because it's just going to make you look like you had to settle and then have weakness and lost. The media is not doing you any favors by women members of the media or any members of the media basically being your mouthpiece. Management doesn't care. There will be a time, once there's a lockout, once that there's a chance of missed games, once that you're missing your salary and not getting paid, there will be a time that you will be asked, and it will be smart to come out and have certain players giving certain comments about the state of the stoppage. Now is not that time. I hope the WNBA pays attention. I really do. I pay attention. Dee Gordon did something yesterday that greatly upset me. Dee Gordon is a former player. Traded for him. He won a batting title with us. He got suspended at a time when it was just terrible for the team for steroids. Dee Gordon and I would play Nerf basketball 100 times a year. There was a Nerf hoop in our clubhouse. He is a great, great guy and a great player. Dee Gordon, why am I bringing this up? He did a podcast yesterday that went viral, and I couldn't believe my ears. He actually said on the podcast that in 2015, when he was on his way to winning a batting title, that he was told and asked by somebody, hey, don't you win that batting title? Somebody else needs to win that batting title. Someone else who's eligible to win a Triple Crown needs to win that batting title. That somebody else is Bryce Harper. Except the problem is Dee had the facts wrong. Bryce Harper had no chance to win a Triple Crown that year. Remember Nolan Arenado still playing? Arenado led the league in runs batted in. Harper couldn't catch him. Harper had 99 RBIs that year. Arenado had 130. Now, Harper did tie with Arenado for 42 home runs. Maybe it was Arenado who could win the Triple Crown, but Arenado wasn't close to the batting title. It was Harper who was fighting with Dee Gordon up to the last day for the batting title. Harper who had the co-lead in home runs, but Harper not close. So nobody was winning a Triple Crown, so Dee may just have forgotten or gotten that wrong. But that wasn't my area of concern. Why is it that Dee thought anybody would tell him not to win a batting title? I remember that day as though it were yesterday, and you'll know why. Yeah, it's 10 years ago. Why do I remember it so well? Well, you may remember the following three facts happened that day, the final day of the season in Philadelphia. Number one, our manager was Dan Jennings, who was our general manager. Remember that whole thing? Hey, we've got an idea. Let's make the general manager the manager. That will avoid any more issues with the owner. That'll work perfectly. Two, that was the day that we knew we were firing the general manager because he pitched Ichiro and didn't tell us in advance. We wanted Ichiro to pitch. Ichiro's Hall of Fame induction I'm going to this weekend. Ichiro, who I'm so close to, he wanted to pitch. We wanted him to pitch. We just were not communicated with, and you got to communicate with your front office if you're the manager. Number three, we were in the clubhouse before the game doing the math. Again, like it was yesterday. Doing the math with Dee Gordon about winning the batting title because he came into that game slightly, like decimal points below Bryce Harper. We were playing the Phillies. So we were looking and saying, if Harper doesn't play, then if you get a hit in the first at bat, you pass Harper. Therefore, do you want to be pulled from the game, win the batting title? But Harper could then come and pinch hit. If Harper gets a hit, goes 1-for-1, and you've gone 1-for-1, Harper's going to win. You're going to lose. So if he pinch hits, you got to be protected. We wanted Dee Gordon to win the batting title so badly because it's great for the Marlins. It's great for Dee Gordon. It's such an accomplishment. He would have become our second batting title champion after Hanley Ramirez that I was a part of. Just great for everyone. I remember doing the math. Dee Gordon was very clear that day. Skipper, I'm playing. We said, all right, Dee, but listen, if you're 0 for 2, we don't want you to lose this. Because if Harper plays and he goes 0 for 3, then you should just go 0 for 2, and then you can win. All of these different math equations. Meanwhile, Dee Gordon goes out there and hits a home run. He gets 3 hits. It was incredible watching that game, knowing that he clinched it. We were up in the box, which at Citizens Bank Park is pretty high up. You're overlooking the field. And during the game, we're continuing to do the math. We've got PR with us, PJ, sitting with Mike Hill. We're all there. Final game of the season. It's the goodbyes. It's the meetings. It's the firings. Everything that goes on when you're not making the playoffs. The Phillies that year stunk. They had lost 99 games going into that final game. They had Pete McKinnon, a former coach of ours in Montreal, was managing them. Anyway, I remember everything about it. I can't remember one thing, but I remember that game. I do remember a lot of weird things from my baseball career when I can't remember things that you generally would want to remember. Hey, what year was my daughter's bat mitzvah? Like that type of stuff? Oh, I got to do the math. Baseball. Oh, I know where I was in July of 2006. I remember that game perfectly. Yes, you were great, D-Train. Anyway, so we're doing the math, and this is all before Ichiro's warming up to pitch, but we're doing the math, and we had it. Dee gets his 3rd hit. It's done. Harper can't catch him. I remember celebrating in the booth. So I texted Dee yesterday. I was like, hey, is this me? Because it couldn't have been me. And he said, no, man, it wasn't you. I said, well, who are you talking about? And then I think his phone died because I didn't quite get the response of exactly who he was talking about. If there really is somebody out there who actually called Dee Gordon to actually say to him, do not win the batting title, that's shameful. Truly shameful. I don't know that it happened that way, but it certainly could have. Dee Gordon, do you remember how hot he was in 2015? Like over his last 12 games, he hit like 350. Harper that day finished 1 for 4, finished at 330, but Dee Gordon went 3 for 4, finished at 332, and he had himself a batting title. It was so wonderful. Now's the time. I'm not angry with Dan Jennings anymore at all. I was angry at the time because I wanted there to be more warning that Ichiro was pitching. I wanted the Japanese TV to be aware of it. I wanted MLB to be aware of it. It was going to be such a big deal to me that Ichiro was pitching. When Dan Jennings came out, he came out after the game and spoke to the media. We were so angry with him, and we knew that it was done with him, that he would not manage another game. He said, we talked about the situation. It had to be right. This is Dan's quote after that game. His last at bat, he's on deck. He looks at me and says, you thinking about it? I said, oh, yeah, it's done. You're in. You got it. And we're looking down. We're like, is that Ichiro? That is not. That. And you're looking and you're squinting your eyes. That's 51. It is amazing. Cannot wait to talk to you about what's going on this weekend up in Cooperstown. So my message to you, Dee, is I'm sorry. I am sorry that anyone would have done that to you. I'm sorry about your feeling this way after all these years. You are a deserving batting champ. Am I upset that you tested positive for steroids? You bet I am. And I've said that to you directly, in person, via tweet, via text, all over the place. It was crushing. It was the beginning of what ended up being that horrific, tragic 2016 that changed the course of all of our lives. But that said, batting title, you are an all-timer. Do you remember talking to you about the Major League Baseball draft? I don't know if you remember, where it's so not a big deal. It literally gets so little attention. Do we even remember anything about it? Well, if you're in Miami, you may have just seen Scott Boras at your ballpark because the Marlins just gave their first round pick $7 million. $7 million. Every first round pick who gets $7 million. That's Scott Boras doesn't do the press conference for his $1 million roster invites. But for a first round pick, why does he go to that press conference and demand to sit on the dais? Because he wants all the parents of the high schoolers and grade schoolers to look at that picture and say, I want my kid to get $7 million. The way to get $7 million, forget coaches, forget practice, forget training, forget skill, talent, and luck. We need Scott Boras. So Boras is sitting there at the table. I'm watching this young guy with the Marlins get the $7 million, laughing at the number of press conferences I did over my time. All of the drafts we had, same press conferences that we'd have the baseball people do, the scouting director do, and you give love to the scout who found the player, who scouted the player the most. You have your GM do it. Rarely did the owner, never did it. Team president, I don't think I ever did any of those. Once in a while, maybe, but rarely. Maybe never. And all I'm thinking to myself is, yeah, 50-50. There's a 50% chance this guy doesn't get a cup of coffee in the big leagues. There's a 50% chance that $7 million whoosh, gets flushed right down the crapper. But press conferences are a time of hope, of prayer, of love. You introduce a kid. Here's what we did with the kids, like the high schoolers who we drafted. We'd bring them in. We'd do a press conference. And then we'd have a locker done in the clubhouse for this kid, like Jose Fernandez or Christian Yelich. They come in, they see their locker, and they get to participate in BP with the team. So Yelich gets to shag, he gets to hit. He's surrounded by big leaguers, by people who he idolizes, and he's just a kid. And you do it because you want your first rounder to feel special, to feel like he's part of the team, and then you send him to the showers. Good luck in single A, young man. Have fun on the bus for 8 hours. Good luck in the locker that's going to be a quarter of this size. You're lucky to have your nameplate on it. It's such a tease. Now, we love it. Jose Hernandez, so you go to BP, first press conference, then you go to BP, then you get dressed and you watch the game in the owner's suite. And you stay and watch the game, and you bring your family, you bring your friends who are high schoolers, and they just love it. You're sitting there, you're with the owner, the president, the GM spends time, the scouting director, player development, you're all there. And all the players want to do is be big leaguers. The memory I have of Jose Fernandez is when he was in the suite watching his first game after he signed his deal, he looked at us and he was so cocky that I dismissed it. Like I said back in those days, I said to my baseball people, what's up with this guy? Like, this is too much. But Jose Fernandez turned around and he was sitting in the front of the suite and I was in the second row. And he said, I'll be right back. And what he meant was, like, I'm going to be here immediately. Like, immediately in all caps. Like the way Donald Trump would tweet about a name change. And the funny part is about having power, showing power, keeping power. The power that Jose Fernandez had, or any young player has when they sign as a drafted player, the only power they have is their performance. They cannot control their destiny. They can't give themselves a roster spot. They can't decide when they're going to be called up or when service time manipulation is going to stop. They have zero power over any of it. And Jose looked at me and said, I'll be right back. And I'll be damned, that kid didn't give us a choice. He was right back. So the Nats signed their first pick. We told you how that works. They waited 6 days because they didn't want to make it look bad. There was a deal already done with their first round pick before they took him. Remember, we told you that the Nationals had the ability to spend $11 million on their number one overall pick. Forget the fact that they fired Mike Rizzo or Davey Martinez. They knew they were taking Willits. They had a deal done with Willits. Less than a week later, they announced it. Willits signed on Saturday for $8.2 million. Now, do you think that's a strange number? I'm just curious, because there is no strange number in baseball. There's just you not knowing the significance of a number, which is fine. That's what I'm here for. Do you know that the record for a high school player, what do you think that number is? Jackson Holliday, 3 years ago, Orioles, 8.19. Willits signed for 8.2. How many times do we go in with an agent and the agent says, you know, that the record for a second-time arbitration-eligible reliever who's got more than 40 holds and fewer than 15 saves with a whip of under 1.69, the record in arbitration is $4.26 million. Our ask, 4.27. It happens all the time. Agents love it. Why? Marketing, baby. You get to say, I'm the agent of record. We set the record. You want to come to me. You don't want to be with that dude. You want to be with me because I get records at your position. So good. $8.2 million in a prearranged deal the Nationals give to pass Jackson Holliday, and it's an underslot deal, which we told you it would be. They were allowed to spend 11.1. They only spent 8.2. Here's the deal. That extra 2.9 million, it's not that you put it in your pocket. You spread it out over the rest of the draft where you overpay a bunch of lower round players because that is your plan. That's how we put a draft together. All they did right now was basically do what every team does. Whether you had a GM in place, whether it's an interim GM or not, it doesn't matter. And so I give all the credit in the world to the Nationals for this deal. Think about, remember who the Rockies signed? I was thinking about this. Remember the Matt Holliday? Holliday, it can be all right. And we mentioned Jackson Holliday. Well, you know that Ethan Holliday was just drafted by the Rockies. And his slot number is 8.77 million. Do you think that the agent for the Holiday, Ethan Holliday, is saying right now to the Rockies, hey, that's our family record. That Willits deal, that 8.2, I want 8.21. It's so obvious that's going to happen. That's what you do. It's like in the NFL with all these non-quarterback players. You've got the record. No, you've got the record. No, you've got the record. TJ Watt, I've got the record. That'd be so great. If Ethan Holliday, we're going to have a whole segment on that, Coca. If Ethan Holliday signs for $8.21 million, which with his slot of 8.77, I am going to love it. It is very rare to sign for your full slot amount. As a matter of fact, Coca just whispered to me, and now we're producing, Coca. Spencer Torkelson in 2020 is the only number one overall since 2016 to sign for the full slot amount. Now we're talking. Look at that value added, that little nugget that people can be smart and walk around saying, you know, that Spencer Torkelson got the full slot amount, but no one since him. I don't know why I have to rediscuss this, but did you watch Scottie Scheffler yesterday by chance? Do you remember the segment we did it was either last week or 2 weeks ago? Scottie Scheffler held the press conference. I remember only that Jack sent me a 5-minute video, and it was Scottie Scheffler talking about, hey, I don't really love winning that much. It's fun, but then I'm never satisfied. And by the way, if it ever gets in the way of me being a dad or me being a husband, which being good at your job always gets in the way of being a good husband or a good father, by definition. All the people who say, oh, I can do both. It's easy. Just you wait and see, David. I'll show you. Scottie Scheffler. He won the British Open yesterday. The guy doesn't lose. Couple little things for you to have on your way out the door. Could Scottie Scheffler be as good as Tiger Woods? He's certainly not getting the attention Tiger Woods got. He certainly doesn't look as good in a red Sunday shirt as Tiger Woods did. He certainly is highly unlikely to be using any sort of substances, but he's winning. Scottie Scheffler won his 4th major. There's only 4 players in the history of golf who have won the Masters, the PGA Championship, and the Open Championship, which he won yesterday, before their age 30. 4 players. Have you heard of them? Gary Player, Jack Nicklaus, and Tiger Woods. Now, Scottie Scheffler. That's it. We thought Tiger Woods, it was winning time, constant winning time. He won every tournament. Between Tiger Woods' first major and his 4th major, it took him 1,197 days. Side note, Scottie Scheffler, from his first major to winning his 4th major, took him 1,197 days. Is there a better, cooler, more ridiculous piece of stat than that? What are the odds? First major to 4th major, the same number of days. Well, it's pretty good given the time of year that the British Open is, given the time of year, they just call it the Open Championship, given the time of year and the number of majors. Scheffler was trying to get his 4th. Tiger got his 4th. They both got their 4th. I guess they're both on the same lists. And I'm watching Scheffler make whatever the payout was, Coca, $3 million, $4 million, whatever it is to win that tournament. I see him go hugging his son and wife. Job well done. We did it. Now let's go figure out what we're going to eat for dinner. I'm watching all of this play out in my mind as I'm watching I watched the last 6 holes of the last round. I'm not going to tell you that I'm not going to lie to you. Yeah, I sat there and watched the whole British Open. No, I watched the last 6 holes of the last round because I wanted to see the winner. I like watching winners. I like watching celebrations. Once in a while, I'll watch more than just the final, like in tennis tournaments. But I couldn't help think about Scheffler. The conversation that he has after winning the tournament. Why would he or his wife want him to stop under any scenario with the dominance that he is showing in the game of golf? And we all know what it means to be that dominant. Sometimes we have not experienced it, but we can imagine it. We can certainly understand it, and we can work toward it. But the number of people who get to be dominant in the thing that they do, and it doesn't have to be a sport. It can be any job you have. It can be being dominant at a hobby. It can be dominant at being a parent. Be dominant at whatever you're dominant in. It's the same feeling. It's the feeling of, I can do this better than all the other people who are trying to do it. And it's measurable. I love it when people say, oh, I'm so good at blank. Well, how do you know? Well, I just know. Well, there's no standings, there's no series, there's no chips in the game. Like, how do you know? I'm just telling you, man, I am so good. Scottie Scheffler now has the proof. If you haven't watched him, I strongly suggest you do. Now, it is true. We've asked you to watch a lot of things. We ask you to watch movies. We ask you to watch TV shows. We ask you to watch sporting events. But I want to say that today, I mean it. When you have a chance to watch some of the baseball games today, it's time now, as we are in July. This is a good break. Training camps are open, but there's no Hall of Fame game yet. There's no preseason, which you don't watch anyway. We're not at the NFL regular season. There's no hockey. There's no basketball. You can watch the WNBA, should you so choose, to watch the train wreck of work stoppage coming to a fruition. But there's some games here. Just watch for greatness. If you only can choose one, I'd watch Ohtani, because the opportunity to watch him pitch is rare. If you can watch Paul Skeens as well, you should do it, because you may not get to watch. It's like watching Mizorowski with the Brewers. Do it, because then you get to say, hey, I was there when. Meanwhile, if you happen to do what we did, which is have your pick of the day and join us, then it may be business involved. We'll come back and do this tomorrow. It's just business. This has been nothing personal.